These are the ASICS Gel-Kayano 31, and these are the Hoka Gaviota 5. Both are max cushion, max stability shoes. So how do you know which one to buy? Well, on today's video, I'm going to be comparing these two shoes to help you decide which shoe is right for you. Hey everybody, I'm Tim and this is Run Tall. If you're new here, welcome to the Run Tall family. I'm really glad that you are here and you found us on YouTube. Now I post videos all the time about running, training, and gear reviews. So if you're into that kind of thing, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free to do, and it really does help out. Now, before I get into it too far, I do want to get a very quick disclosure out of the way. I did purchase both of these two shoes with my own money. So no one sent me these shoes to review. No one's paying me to make the video. No one's telling me what to say. And no one has an opportunity to preview my thoughts before I share them with you first here on YouTube. With that out of the way, let's talk about the ASICS Gel-Kayano 31 and the Hoka Gaviota 5. Starting with the most expensive of the two shoes, and that is the Hoka Gaviota 5. They retail for $175 US, while the ASICS Gel-Kayano 31 come in at $165 US. So not a lot less expensive, but $10 saved is $10 earned, at least in my opinion. All right, we're going to go through, we're going to look at the upper, the midsole, and the outsole, and I'll give you my thoughts or my choice of which shoe I would purchase if I could only choose between these two shoes, if I didn't own them both, because I'll tell you right up front, they're both really terrific stability shoes to have, and I'm glad to have them both in my arsenal, shoes that I can pick from, but if I could only have one, I'll let you know which one that is at the end of this video. All right, so let's talk about the uppers first. Now, there's quite a bit of difference here. Hoka is using jacquard Creole upper. Now, all that means is that, it's a different way of weave when they weave the material together. It's a bit coarse to the touch. It feels really durable, and it is. There's not a lot of forgiveness here, so it's really virtually no stretch here in this material at all. They fit really comfortable. I didn't have any issues with hot spots. They're not very breathable. They do run for me a little bit warm on foot, but that's okay. I live in Michigan, and about 9 months out of the year, I'm running in cooler weather, it seems like. So a shoe like this, it's not overly hot, but it's certainly not the most cool shoe that I've had on my foot. It's more moderate or middle of the road, maybe tending a little towards the warmer side of things. But it is a very comfortable upper. It fits pretty snug across the midfoot. You can't really see any real perforations in this upper. And again, it is a bit coarse to touch, and like I said, there's really no stretch to it. That's a little different here. They're using engineered mesh material. There's a lot of stretch in this material, and you can see as I kind of pull on the toe box just how much stretch there is. So they're a little bit more forgiving that way. They do have quite a few perforations here, but they still, even with those big perforations that you see up in the toe box, and they run just a little ways down the shoe, there's really not that type of perforations that you see in the toe box that run back through here. But this is kind of a screen door paneled mesh material that's in the midfoot section here, and then it's just pretty solid back here because of the heel counter. But these are also kind of that middle of the road in terms of breathability. They do run a little cooler, I think, than the Gaviota 5. I can get good use out of both of these. Oh, and just to let you know, I do have about, I think when I looked, I had 138 miles that I've run in these shoes, but I've also used them as a lifestyle shoe, used them riding my bike, all kinds of things. So I've really kind of put them through their paces. When I first got these shoes, which was, nearly a year ago, I think, I wore them every day for as long as I can remember as a lifestyle shoe because I was injured at the time. And I have, I think, 178 miles, something like that, on these shoes. So a fair amount. I've got a fair amount of running miles in both of these shoes. But there again, I've also used these as a lifestyle shoe because they're a comfortable shoe to walk in. In terms of the upper, if I had to pick one that I like the most, it would be the ASICS Gel-Kayano 31. And that's just because this is they're both daily trainers, they're both max cushion, they're both stability shoes. These are just a little more accommodating. It's got that little extra stretch there. I found it to be really comfortable. Both are comfortable, but I just like the 31 a little bit better in terms of the upper and they are just slightly cooler, and that can be an advantage sometimes too. All right, so let's take a look at the padding around the heel collar since I've got the 31 in my hand. You got a lot of padding up around the heel collar of the shoe, and it's kind of that pillow style that I like to, at least that's what I call it, because it rests up around the collar and then it slowly tapers down into the bed of the shoe. Pretty much the same thing going on here with the Gaviota 5. Lots and lots of padding, about the equivalent. I think they're about the same. They're both well padded. They both mostly sit up around the collar of the shoe and slowly taper down into that footbed, and both create a nice heel pocket for your heel to set in. When we take a look at the lace enclosure system on both of these shoes, they're pretty much the same. There's really not a big difference here. Very traditional in style, and I took the laces out of these so that maybe we can see them a little bit better here. This is just a straight chain with some plastic overlays, nothing crazy going on there. And then if I look at the 31, and I pile my shoes up here, they're slightly offset chain, so it's not exactly straight, but that offset is pretty slight. They're going to have plastic overlays around the eyelets just to give it some extra durability, and both shoes do have that extra place for a runner's knot. So you got the extra eyelet up here on both shoes in case you want to run with runner's knot, and I typically do. And I'm going to switch back here to the Gaviota 5 to take a look at the tongue and the padding around the tongue. And one of the interesting things here is Coke started doing this a while back, where they only gusset one side of the shoe, of the tongue. And so, it does a fine job, it's keeping it in place. I don't know why they just go with one gusset. They both have pass-throughs here that also help hold the tongue in place. I didn't have an issue with the Gaviota having the tongue migrate around at all, but I didn't have it with the Gel-Kayano 31 either. So if we take a look at that tongue, it too is pretty padded, but not as well padded. If you're looking for a lot of padding, this I think has slightly more than the Kayano 31, but only slightly. So if you're just looking for that little extra so you don't feel the laces coming across the top of your midfoot, if that's been an issue for you in the past, maybe because of the way you like to lace them down, maybe you like to cinch your laces down pretty tight, the Gaviota is going to have maybe a little more protection, but not that much more. They do have gussets on the Kayano 31, and you can see they're gusseted on both sides. And again, both the shoes, as I mentioned, have these pass-through loops to help hold the tongue in place, but it's kind of being overdone, at least in my opinion. If you got gussets, especially on both sides of the tongue, it's not going to go anywhere anyway. So do you really need it? I don't know that you do, but I use them anyway. I do pass my laces through those pass-through loops. Okay, so enough about the tongue of the shoe. They're both really comfortable. I didn't have any issues getting locked in and all the way back to the heel cup of both shoes, so I felt really secure in each of them. Another piece, because these are stability shoes, is the amount of structure that they have in the heel. And I've commented on this in the past when I've reviewed these shoes, that Gel-Kayano 31 has a lot of structure back here in the heel. And you can see as I'm trying to squeeze that with my hand here, it's really solid. And same goes if I try to push forward on it. I can a little, but it's pretty solid heel counter. So if we take a look at the Gaviota 5, it's pretty much the same, but there is a little bit more, I think, maybe in the Kayano 31, but it still has a lot there. As a stability shoe, it has what I think that you need to have, and probably a little more so maybe if I try to force it forward. So maybe the 31 has a little more from side to side, and the Gaviota a little bit more if you go this direction, but both are going to hold your heel in place and give you that little extra support that you need to hold you there, hold you tight so that you have all of the stability that you're going to need, because these shoes have a job to do, and that's to keep us in a healthy level of pronation, whether our ankles are turning in or turning out. The idea is to get us to a more neutral position, and they both do a really, really good job at that. Let's talk about the stability features. Okay, so beginning with the Gaviota 5. Gaviota's been probably my favorite stability shoe to run in for a lot of years. I've run in, I think, all of the different versions and put thousands of miles in them. and they've done a really, really good job for me. The Gaviota 5 has now creeped up to be probably my favorite. Now, in the past, I would have said 2 and 4. 2 and 4 were pretty much kind of a tie for me, but they was really both comfortable shoes to run in. These are a little more comfortable, and they offer the kind of stability that I really like, and that's because they changed it. So we'll talk about the stability feature right now. In the past, they had like a J frame, so they had stability just kind of in this J shape. Now they went to an H frame, so they've got stability on both sides of the shoe and then kind of across where your arch would be. And it does a really nice job. When you step into these shoes, you kind of sink in and it holds you in place so that when you're running, you're not overly turning your ankles one way or the other. Now for me, I severely overpronate and I turn my ankles in just terribly bad. And it's not as noticeable in film because I typically do a mid to forefoot strike on a shoe, and so it doesn't show up that much there. But if I'm walking, it definitely does because I just turn in, and my ankles just turn in. So you got an H frame here, and then with the Gel-Kayano 31, they have what they call their 4D guidance system. Let's see, I got to turn the shoe around so we can see it here. 4D guidance system, which essentially I think does the same thing, right? It has the same idea here, and that's to provide pronation control in both directions instead of just one that has been historically what stability shoes have done in the past, at least the ones that I've had anyway. And it does a really good job of that. When you step into these shoes, that Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco material, you kind of sink into it, but the difference is, and I felt that with the EVA here too, so both shoes you kind of sink in, which is really nice because it feels really snug and comfortable when you do that. But with the 31s, what I noticed is that when I sank into it, is I kind of sank in and then there was a lot of arch support. But it took me by surprise, I guess, when I stepped into it, because I wasn't expecting that feel, but it felt good. It felt good. So just lots of support there where my arch is. And I have really, really flat feet. So if you have a high arch, you might not notice that. But for me, because my feet are so flat, having that extra support and kind of turning my ankles into that more neutral position where they should be was very, very noticeable. I did not get that feeling in the Gaviota 5. The Gaviota 5 felt much more like the traditional stability shoes to me. Do a really good job holding me in place, and when I'm running, keeping me in that healthy level of pronation, but it didn't stand out to me as a standout feature when I first stepped into them. Doesn't mean it isn't there, it just was slightly different feel to that. The additional stability features that they have here, they've got their pure gel back here in the heel, and then both shoes are quite wide. And I'm going to try to put these up. Hopefully I got these shoes right one. So if we take a look at these shoes, the Gaviota 5 is slightly wider. Hoka's known for having wide shoes, and these are just a little bit wider. So if you like that width that, on a stability shoe that adds that little extra stability because of that, the Gaviota 5 is a really good shoe for that. And both pretty much stay wide. They taper up there a little bit towards the mid section of the shoe, but for the most part, these are both really wide landing platforms, which I do very much enjoy. Also with the midsoles, I think it's worth noting is the stack height. So again, you've got their Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco material here. I was trying to find where they wrote it on here. Up here, you got 40 millimeters in the heel and 30 up here in the forefoot. So they got that 10 millimeter difference or offset. The Gaviota has 36 in the heel and 30, so a 6 millimeter offset. So both have 30 millimeters under your forefoot of the shoe, but you have more of the Flight Foam Blast material in the Gel-Kayano 31, 4 millimeters more, and that is noticeable. That is noticeable. They both have a bit of a rocker design to help you transition through, whether you're walking or running, through your gait a little bit more smoothly. Now with the Gaviota 5, they got that meta rocker design that Hoka is known for, and that is a really nice smooth transition whether you are walking or running. So I think they both did a really good job there. Okay, so Outsole. You can see that they have outsole material on all of those different pods. So basically anywhere that's going to be touching the ground, they do have some areas, but not many. There's just one little piece here that is on the medial side of the shoe, right underneath your arch, that isn't covered. But the rest all has, you know, a fair amount of outsole rubber on there to protect that EVA foam, and I think does a good job. You know, I have, like I said, 138 miles on these, and they're holding up really well. You can see a little bit of wear here and there. I don't typically heel strike, but I can get some wear right up here in the forefoot of the shoe, and you can see it now that I kind of tilt it just right in the light. You can see that it is worn down just a little bit up here in the forefoot of the shoe. So let's take a look at the Kayano 31, and pretty much the same story there, although they have their AHR rubber in the heel, and that's not really where I need it because I don't heel strike. But if you do heel strike, you've got a more durable rubber that's back here that's going to make these last a little bit longer. But you can see now, if I turn this off to the side, that I have wore down the outsole rubber here after 178 miles a bit. You can see that it's a bit worn. So they are showing some signs of wear for sure. Both shoes are durable. I think you're going to get your money's worth out of either one, whichever one you choose to purchase. I think that the Gaviota 5 is more durable. So if you want to get value for your money, you know, it does cost $10 more, but I do think you're going to get more miles out of these before you start to feel that midsole breakdown and before that outsole rubber starts to wear too thin on the shoes. That's one thing I did notice. I love the Flight Foam Blast Plus material, but you know, I'm pushing 200 miles in these shoes. I have a lot more miles in both of these shoes if you were to kind of talk about all of the walking miles that I put in them as well. But I do feel like this midsole material is starting to lose a little of its luster. It's still fine to run in, but it's starting to show, or I start to feel like it's losing a little bit of that bounce back. Now, neither shoe is a fast shoe, that's for sure. They're both like putting turtles on your feet, I think. But they're great for just logging a lot of slower miles. So, 90% of your training, if you're training for a marathon, you're probably, running 90% of your time, you're running some slower, longer miles or slower miles anyway. And these are going to do great for that. Going to be doing great for that. But I do feel like I have to work pretty hard. There's a noticeable difference when I pull these off my feet and I put in a race day shoe for a day just to go out and maybe do a little bit of speed work. There is a big difference, big difference. So they're both a little slow, a little bit more cumbersome to run in, but they're both really, really comfortable shoes. And I enjoy both of them. I absolutely enjoy both of them. I'm glad I bought them both. I did just pre-order the Gel-Kayano 32, which is going to be coming out next month. I think about midway through June, something like that. So I got the new version of that on pre-order already. If I could only pick one of these two shoes, and this is a surprise to me as well, because I've been a huge Gaviota fan for a lot of years, and I still am, but I like the Kayano 31 just a little bit better. If you've bought the Gaviota 5, you got yourself a good shoe, and don't feel bad about that. But in terms of just overall comfort, the shoe that I tend to want to reach for just a little bit more when I want just to go out and have a nice, enjoyable, comfortable ride where I know I'm going to be healthy and safe, it's the Gel-Kayano 31. I absolutely love to run in that shoe, and that's my pick. Now, not everyone's going to feel the same way, and that's okay. If you prefer the Gaviota 5, we can talk about that in the comment section below. But if you love the 31 like I do, and I should say I love both of the shoes, I think the 31 is just a little bit nicer for me to run in because it is a little bit softer, and I like the feeling of that pronation control right when I first put those shoes on. So, all right, you guys. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on Run Tall with Jeff.